Hello EFD squad and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. Joining me, it's the Beard Junior. It is Pat and Zach.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you guys?
Good.
Just good.
How are you, my son?
It's Friday.
I'm good, thank you. I'm
So
Stavabian.
proud of him.
Miles of
Stavabian.
smiles on the end there from Zach. That's what we like to see. And we're starting with Bayern Munich, who aren't smiling so much these days, are they? Fifth in the Bundesliga at current. Couple of players at the end of their tenure, let's say. So we're going to discuss how to rebuild them to an extent. We're taking a little bit of a nod from the podcast of late. Now, a bunch of guys sent questions in about Bayern Munich, so we've sort of made an amalgamation. And we're starting with Aaron Ramsey, who's been in my mentions more than he deserves in recent weeks, okay? Because rumour has it, Zach, the Welshman, the Dragon, is on his way to the Allianz.
Yes, surprisingly, a bit of a shocking one, that one. If you live under a rock, it was confirmed earlier this season that Ramsey would leave Arsenal at the end of this campaign because basically Arsenal, and I think fairly, didn't want to meet his £200,000 a week demands, which is probably a bit extortionate for that kind of player he is.
Did they offer him 200k and then withdraw it?
I think apparently Ivan Gazidis was quite keen that we locked him up to a new deal, but once Gazidis off to Milan, everybody who was left at the club said, that's one of the stupidest ideas we've ever had, and we're a horribly run club. So let's probably not do that. Let's not give a bunch of money to a guy who's 27 and can't stay fit.
Packed up tough, Gazidis.
Literally.
Yeah, probably wise in the end. Zach, how would he fit in with Bayern?
It's a weird one because on top of this as well, Bayern apparently don't want to sign James Rodriguez due to injury problems. So instead, they're going to go sign a midfielder who plays a bit deeper, who's not been playing football for about 2 years with all his injuries added up together. He's missed, in fact, 669 days due to career injuries.
But at least if Aaron Ramsey comes in for James Rodriguez, they've identified him, the hierarchy at Bayern, as an attacking midfielder, not a central midfielder, because his defensive contribution has waned somewhat, hasn't it?
It's gone back up a little bit this season under Emery, but yeah, it's been getting worse and worse. He's less rangy than he ever was. But that actually makes less sense to me, because if you want to push a midfielder forward into an attacking role, just play James there, who was actually better defensively last season than Ramsey was. Had about 3 tackles and interceptions a game, really good defensively. Tolisso, who's just as good in attack as Ramsey is while doing midfield things. Thiago Alcantara, who's certainly better, leads Europe in getting the ball into the final third with dribbles and passes, and has played number 10 before and has been outstanding there.
So out of those 3 names, there's no one you can rely on to complete a full season at current, because they're all injury stricken.
Yeah.
Well,
other than Ramsey.
I mean, the question is how Tolisso comes back. But even then, I don't know. It just seems like a very strange move to me. Like whoever wrote the script suggested Pablo Fornals as a potential signing for Bayern Munich, and that makes way more sense to me. He's 22. He's a better creator than Ramsey. He's faster. He's a good dribbler. He can play on the wing, which Ramsey can't really, even though he has actually been stationed there in the past. Like, there are so many better options for a club of Bayern's magnitude, and it just seems very strange that they'd pick up Ramsey. I just don't get it. It doesn't work.
Had an eye on how Goretzka is faring. He's not got a lot of starts at the beginning of the season. Obviously, Kovac has been chopping and changing, hasn't he? But James Rodriguez, 5 starts, 3 goals, 2.3 key passes a game, still having 2.1 shots. So when he does play, and I don't know how extensive his injuries are, he certainly still justifies a permanent deal. I don't know why they wouldn't consider that.
And he can fill in on the right if you need him to.
Yeah.
Like, he played on the right wing before. You don't necessarily want him to start there all the time, but he can play there. Whereas Ramsey doesn't give you positional versatility in the way that actually Goretzka does do. Like, Goretzka I still think is not quite at the races. I still think he had a terrible season last year. But he can play in a defensive role. He can play as a normal central midfielder, and he can push forward because he's actually really quick. So
I think we've got to remember though, if they get him on a free, I think it's absolutely fine business. He's actually done very well there.
Pay him a fortune.
Yeah, but then if you take into comparison how much you would have had to pay to sign him from Arsenal and stuff like that, it's not too bad. But this is the weird thing that I don't understand. If Arsenal now know he's leaving, why won't they try and get rid of him in January?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, if he's got a deal signed with Bayern, then they can't. They're just going to have to accept the fact they let him leave for nothing. Like, Arsenal, I'm sure would be delighted to sell him in January. But if he's decided he's going to Bayern, they're not going to pay the money because they don't need him this season, really. and Arsenal kind of have nothing they can do about it. Though I think actually you're overlooking an issue there, which is that 200 grand a week is going to be right at the top end of what Bayern pay their players.
Oh yeah, of course.
And they'd be much better off paying him a lower wage but a bigger signing fee, because otherwise everybody at that club is going to say, if Aaron Ramsey is getting paid 200k a week, you better believe that I'm getting paid more than that.
Like Lewandowski, all of them.
And Bayern have constantly... The thing is about Bayern is they talk a really big game about how they don't overspend on transfer fees or on wages. And it's actually fantastically stupid of them, because at some point they're going to have to start doing it, and then they're going to look like idiots. They've just been lucky that up until now, they haven't had to go on a big spending spree, but they're going to need to buy a striker, they're going to need to buy at least one winger, they're going to need to buy another midfielder, another centre-back. They've got so many areas they need to strengthen.
There's echoes of Real Madrid in there, aren't they? That they're going to have to do all of this during one summer to remain a truly elite side in Europe. I mean, they can chop and change and domestically still be fine. I think expected points actually puts them at the top of the Bundesliga this season, whereas Dortmund are running pretty lucky at the moment, should be on 21, on 26, I believe, which would kind of reverse them with Bayern Munich. But yeah, I would be going after, and if I was a Bayern Munich fan, Aaron Ramsey, okay, would be fine, like you said.
Yeah, he'd be fine.
Okay business on a free, wages dependent, but I'd be somewhat underwhelmed with that ambition.
Well, you'd hope he wasn't be the only
You want them to be
signing.
going after a Pulisic, don't you, who's available, his contract expires in 2020, his opportunities have been limited this season owing to the rise of Jadon Sancho, and his stock was up here last year, and that's exactly the sort of signing that Dortmund would have made 4 or 5 years ago to remain top dog in the Bundesliga. Even guys like Kai Havertz as well from Bayer Leverkusen, who looks like such a languid, really good playmaker. I love him. Watching him, he's really aesthetically pleasing on the eye, and he's a good passer. He gets off good shots. I'm not sure about his shot location, but Aaron Ramsey, just echoes again of Goretzka last season, just like fine. Here's a fine central midfielder.
They've basically downgraded their central midfield over the last couple of years, and more importantly, their wings have been downgraded purely by the passage of time. Like, don't get me wrong, Gnabry is a perfectly useful squad player. Coman may turn back into the superstar that we suspected he could be.
Have injuries robbed him of that potential?
Well, this is the thing. We have no idea. He's still extremely young on the plus side, but I would go out and I would buy a starting level winger. Like, I think even Pulisic is a little bit of a risk right now, because Pulisic has kind of stalled the last 2 seasons, hasn't really kicked on, and partially that's Dortmund being in
as well.
He hasn't been injured that much. Like, I'd say it's more
this season, hasn't he?
Yeah, but I don't know if that really diminishes your output in a team that is kind of attacking particularly well at the moment. He's just been used in a different way. Like, he's played quite a bit when he's been fit, and his role seems to be ball progression as opposed to chance creation, and we haven't seen him kick on in terms of chances created per game or shots taken. So I would go for someone like Memphis Depay. I think Memphis Depay is ready to go. He's 24. He's incredibly fast. He's pretty positionally versatile compared across your front line. Last season, 6th in Ligue 1 for key passes per game, 5th for shots this season. He's creating over 4 key passes a game, which is pretty much the best in Europe right now. I mean, he's such a good player, and he gives them the pace on the wings, which they desperately need. Because even if you think that Ribery and Robben can still be useful, they're not fast anymore. And that's a real loss for Bayern. They need pace.
Yeah, their numbers are still good, but when you look a little bit deeper, Ribery is not beating his man anywhere near as much as he used to. His take on percentage is bottomed out. Ian Robben, I don't think has he scored this season, or that may be Ribery that I'm thinking of. But so while their key passes, while their involvement in play is still pretty healthy, the sort of decisiveness is nowhere near what it was 2-3 years ago, or even more so at this point. So what are we saying? That Aaron Ramsey, fine signing, but doesn't address the multitude of problems that Bayern are facing in the next 2 or 3 years. And we think they should make potentially a bunch of signings at the end of this season, really, because it's kind of felt like they've been stockpiling their money. I mean, Corentin Tolisso is their record signing, and that is less than Everton spent on Gylfi Sigurdsson. So the money's got to be there, surely, because Champions League wise, they've been clocking up that semi-final dough for quite some time, haven't they? I'm not sure what the TV rights are like in Germany right now. They're about a third of the Premier League last time I looked. So
yeah, they buy and get a good share of it.
Yeah, and they've also won the domestic league and also their cup competitions several times the past couple of years. As you said, they're basically stockpiling the money. And if you actually look at their whole core, even Neuer, I think, has been a bit suspect this year.
I mean, he's having his worst year by far.
And whether they've got to replace him, I think Hummels and Boateng. Like they've got Nicolas Süle, who's quality, but Boateng and Hummels are going to have to replace them. As we said, I think it's that core. It's basically their whole squad apart from left back and right back.
Who do you guys want to win the Bundesliga?
Dortmund.
Yeah,
100%. It's just more. It's more of like it's seeing the underdog win, isn't it? We all love an underdog story. We all love the fact that we see Sancho killing it, Paco Alcacer scoring every other minute. And it's just a nice thing to see, especially when it's like when Klopp made it to the final and also won the league as well. It's just nice to see
refreshing.
that Bayern Munich weren't winning again and again and again and again. It was like last 2 seasons ago when RB Leipzig were top of the table for a little while. And we were just like, oh my god, the Bundesliga is interesting again.
Okay, and I mean it's interesting that you mentioned Hummels and Boateng there because we haven't spoke about a player that looks certain to come in Benjamin Pavard, who I'm a massive fan of. You know, he's completing 7.9 clearances a game this campaign. That obviously...
I mean, they've been under the cosh.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense as Stuttgart are bottom with a minus 24 goal difference, I think. So pretty much the Fulham of this of the Bundesliga this season. But he's also making sort of 3.5 tackles and interceptions, I think around 55, 60 passes per game, which doesn't shock me because he's extremely comfortable on the ball, isn't he? He's a really intelligent player, plays centre-back for Stuttgart, but plays right-back mainly for France, so kind of got that versatility as well. And he just looks like a Bayern player, you know, someone that can step out of the line, is comfortable bringing the ball through midfield, in the same way that actually Kevin Vogt is of Hoffenheim fame. Who's a little bit older, 27. They've been linked with him as well. Do you know much about this guy? Because I was watching highlight videos before we came on set, and he looks like another good progressive passer. He looks like someone who, I mean, he loves playing on the ground. He's like carpet. He's always on the deck, which I'm a massive fan of. That's where I spend most of my game.
He's worked well at Hoffenheim, but he's played mostly in a back three at Hoffenheim, and that would be my one kind of concern. Plus, I think that back line is getting slower. Hummels used to be quick. He's a lot slower now. Boateng used to be very quick. Süle is slow. He's really slow. Pavard is quick, so that'll help. So, but I do worry a little bit about when you push up the field in the way that Bayern do, and you're a slow build-up possession side, which is what we saw against Dortmund. You do need your centre-backs to be either exceptionally good readers of the game or to be able to cover ground, and I worry a little bit about whether they can do that.
I wonder where their back line is positioned these days, because obviously Pep bought it about 15 metres further forward, didn't he? And it's pretty much the halfway line, and that's obviously pretty daring, and that might be where someone like Vogt suffers if he's not got that pace.
And they got countered relentlessly in that Dortmund game.
They did, yeah.
Well, even when Germany were in the World Cup, they were playing a very high line then. It was Hummels and Boateng in the back line. Then that's when also Hummels came out afterwards.
And stuck a little bit, didn't it?
And he was just like, "Why are we playing so high? Me and Boateng shouldn't be the only ones back here." Like, he literally moaned after the Mexico game.
Yeah, I think
after the World Cup and one of them.
Probably.
So when they're raising the issues themselves, it's probably a problem.
Yeah, so I don't know if Kovacs plays a high line. You'd have to let us know in the comments below, Bayern fans. But, so, I mean, what do you make of those two signings before we move on? Would you sanction them if you were the Bayern Munich hierarchy? Would you bring one of them in or both?
I think one of them for now, and then maybe like in Pavard, and then in January, depending how Pavard and Süle have worked together, and probably Hummels, because if there's going to be one of them that drops out, it'd be Boateng rather than Hummels, I think. I think you do Pavard now and then see what happens in January if you need another one.
Yeah, Passo?
Yeah, I don't think you need to get two of them in. Like, whether Hummels and Boateng are ideal to play in that team anymore. I think Hummels still is very, very good. He's still better than Vogt, and he's still probably better than Süle at the moment. But like, yeah, I think that you can rely on them to be solid rotation options.
Yeah, right. Have it. So that's Bayern Munich fixed. Moving on. What was that? 20 minutes. Come on, Uli Hoeneß. Get a grip. Right, guys, you know the rates by now. It's quickfire questions time. First one is from Jad Hadar, and he's asked, my voice went then, what are your opinions on the idea of countries joining together to make a bigger league? And the example he's given is Belgium and Netherlands. And Vincent Kompany came out recently and said he'd be behind this idea because they need to be more competitive, and hopefully that would improve the crop of youngsters working their way up to the national team, I guess, the first team in the national team. So what do you guys think to this? Are you averse to this, or are you all for borders?
I like it a lot, because then it means there's higher quality clubs about, they're all playing against higher quality opposition. If you're thinking like you play against better people, means you'll get better over time.
Probably more money in the league.
Yeah, more money. I think it's a good idea. I think there will be a bit of skepticism.
That's the word.
Yeah, got there eventually. Due to people like being like, oh, but that league is like our country. Everyone wants to keep it within the country. A bit Brexit ideas there, but I don't really see that a bad thing for it.
No, I agree. And it's a much better idea in terms of bridging that quality gap between the top 3 or 4 divisions and the rest, than teams from those leagues going off and forming a Super League, which is pretty much greed personified. I think that is a terrible idea, this European Super League they might be forming. And the actual ethics of it are pretty despicable, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But as someone who supports a team from a vastly inferior league, I'm all for this. I think Ukraine and Russia were going to do it as well, which makes perfect
That
sense.
would make sense. Well,
Who would Scotland join? What country would Scotland
Well,
join?
they suggested the idea of like a North Atlantic League, I think, which would have been, I think, Holland at the time and Portugal as well, which
God.
That's a mix.
would be odd, but I'd be all for, obviously.
Austria and Switzerland could combine their leagues, and that would actually be quite fun.
Yeah.
Because they're quite interesting hotbeds of young talent and managerial talent, and if you combine them, I'd be much more inclined to watch.
And the people who are against this, that I've seen, are pretty much people that support the bigger teams who kind of they want to have their cake and eat it, don't they?
Yeah.
If you're scrambling around for, to improve your club, then this might be a solution. So I'm all for it. Is that
100%.
3 yeses?
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, why not? Moving on then. Next question is from Musa Gulza 209. Do you think Bielsa can get Leeds back in the Prem? And if yes, then how would he do in the Prem? Does anyone have a
I've actually seen a
comprehensive
bit of
answer for this?
Bielsa.
Go on, mate.
The football is so impressive, but they're so like either 100% or 0%. They're either playing phenomenally. Oh my God. They're either playing amazingly or they're playing so bad. And it's just like, I can't remember who I watched where they lost to, but I've seen games where some of the football is just so impressive, just how these championship players doing this. And obviously it's because of Bielsa, but then you've also seen where obviously his tactics haven't worked and they've conceded like 4 goals.
I've never seen a Bielsa team be good all season, and the championship is a really long season. Like that's the worry. Like, I mean, his Marseille side were amazing till about January, February, and then they slacked off, and they were like 20 games into the season. Like they're probably 20 games into the championship season by now. So I really worry when it gets to 46 matches what will have happened to Leeds, because people's legs will be worn down to stumps. Like he routinely runs his teams into the ground.
But I'd like to see him in the Premier League though with Leeds. It'd be so interesting. He'd like get a 3-0 win against United but get slapped by Newcastle 4-0.
Yeah, I'd like it if like Southampton were in trouble and they were like, we're going to get him in January and just see what happens.
Because then you've got
that would be if you got him in for half a season, he'd be super fun.
Do you know who else is playing a really good brand of football in the Championship? Is Daniel Farke with Norwich. They're playing some great sort of Leeds.
I think it's Norwich
stuff,
that beat.
Bielsa-esque
I think it's
stuff.
Norwich that beat Leeds like 4-1 or something like that.
Was
Yeah,
it?
they just cut through them on the counter, didn't they?
I like that. The other day I saw that a combination of Leeds, West Brom and Derby all pumped each other 4-1.
Frankie.
And then lost to the other one 4-1. So yeah, probably is the answer. I like that it's kind of him and Tony Pulis heading up the Championship. They're complete polar opposites in terms of philosophy. But next question is from Tom Golazzo. And he said, do you think clubs should maximise short-term success or should they plan for long-term success?
They should plan for long-term, but they never will, especially if they're a big club. I think as a fan, you want them to go in for youth and like have that youth play there for like 7 years and become a legend and stuff like that. However, clubs now are all about the money. It's all about how many trophies they can win within the next 3 or 4 years. The biggest example of that is Chelsea. Chelsea have such a good youth academy. However, we won't ever use it properly because we are all about short-term success. We are all about winning a trophy every single season, and you can't do that and expect at the same time to have youth players who will be there for a long, long time.
Like it's a little bit reductive. I feel like most clubs would plan for long-term success. I don't think anyone anticipates maybe barring Chelsea or the Pozzos at Watford.
Yeah.
I don't think they actually do, though. I think they'd say that they plan for long-term success, but I don't think they actually do. I think teams routinely make decisions that are short-termist. Like, but I agree with you in the sense that, like, I reject the premise of the question. Like, you should always be you should have an overarching, like, long-term scheme, but then within that you can make short-term moves. It's just that those should never prevent you achieving your long-term goals. Like, think of it this way: it's like watching a TV series where there'll be a season-long arc, but each episode has its own contained story. So, for instance, say you're Liverpool and you've got 2-3 seasons now where you're like, right, we've got this bunch of talent, they're all at the right age, we need to keep them together. We can make some short-term moves to maximise our chances of winning the league now. But you should never commit to something like, say, United signing Alexis Sanchez, which is going to have huge knock-on effects and actually decrease your ability to reach your long-term goals, which are to be a sustainable Champions League side.
Or maybe giving Ozil £350,000 a week as he approaches the sort of the tail end of his career.
I mean, Ozil's a bit of a different situation, though, isn't it?
I mean, you could argue that within Chelsea and within Watford, the two examples that I just sort of poo-pooed, that there is a more long-term plan in that. I mean, are we defining long-term as a sort of a managerial reign? Because with the Pozzos, they have quite a strict sort of, way of operating as part of their club, don't they? And if the manager ever kind of steps out of line, then he's gone, and that has sort of served them well in terms of their survival in the Premier League. And I guess Chelsea's stockpiling young talent is a long-term plan, and it's served them well in terms of selling players on, generating funds.
I don't think it's a bad thing. There's a TIFO video, which if you've not seen, actually check out. It's very good, about Chelsea's loan system, and it says how Chelsea will keep quality players like, say, Loftus-Cheek, Mason Mount, and others like that don't work, like Marco Marin, Schürrle. They will go and sell on for a profit. They never ever really making a loss on these kind of players. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. But I think in general in the Premier League now, what's it? Eddie Howe, is he the longest serving manager now in the Prem?
Wouldn't surprise me. Yeah.
Like, that basically explains it all. Like, it's not like it used to be where a manager can be there for 20 years anymore. It is all about you've got to prove yourself in the first season, and then maybe you'll get if you don't win a trophy in the second season, if you're a top manager.
And the top clubs are kind of factoring that in, aren't they? We'll see more directors of football. We'll see more. I guess if you look behind the scenes, there's people who are like the director of the academy or head kind of, not head coaches, but people in other pivotal areas of the business are going to be there for longer than the manager, and I guess that's where you kind of find the continuity maybe at a top club. But kind of Man United aren't doing it very well at the moment, are they? What about Chelsea? Maybe facing a transfer ban? Did you speak about that at VFN?
We did. We spoke about that briefly, but it's a weird one. I think bottom line, essentially, the issue is Chelsea signed. The main one is Bertrand Traore, who's now at Lyon. We signed him when he was over 18 to a 4-year deal, essentially. And there are claims that Chelsea actually signed him before he was 18. And in general, when you're that young, you're not allowed to sign a deal longer than 3 years.
Okay.
And
so that's recommended a 2-year ban, which is pretty punchy.
And a 45k fine. Let's not forget that. It's worrying because Chelsea basically needs to make a signing each year to stay at the top level and basically compete with the rest of the clubs around the Premier League, and in the Champions League we want to stay and get in there. It is worrying, and it's something that I actually think can happen. It happened to Real Madrid, it happened to Atletico Madrid. Like, it's not just something that they've said and might not happen, because we've seen the big boys have it happen to them. So I would be very worried, but maybe it means we keep a lot of our youth and we don't send them out on loan, because then we can keep and stockpile them to play the games that we need them to play.
The average age of your squad is pretty decent, so you could definitely ride it out and remain a top club. But so now we've kind of opened up on this question a little bit. Who would you guys say are a top club who are planning for long-term success and finding success in that, and maybe the polar opposite as well? What examples can you think at either end of the spectrum? Maybe one slap bang in the middle who's got the best of both worlds sort of tied down. So I mean, Juventus for me have been the model of consistency in Europe's top 5 for the last 5-6 years, haven't they? And they've tied Allegri down on contracts, to long-term contracts, key talent down to long-term contracts, and you could argue that signing Ronaldo, and he probably still will perform domestically for 3 years, and does 3 years qualify as long-term? I'd probably say 3 to 5. That is for the long-term future of their club in terms of fan perception, in terms of joining that elite band, growing their digital brand, I guess. So even short-termisms there will have long-term impacts. But you guys think of any others that you want to flag, or?
Man City and Liverpool are probably the good examples. I mean, Man City they focused on their academy early on and pumped money into it, and it helps when you seem to have unlimited money, but they have made smart decisions about their squad. Their squad is incredibly young and incredibly good, and they were able, when you shop at that end of the market though, you can make decisions. You can buy players who are going to be with you for a long time, but who are also ready to go now. Liverpool are actually a really good example of it. Liverpool have got this attitude of, we're going to buy players usually from sub-elite teams, just below the top level. We're going to turn them into stars. And then if somebody gives us a genuinely outrageous offer, we will sell. Like they're not refusing to sell, but they're only selling for obscene fees. And that's really sensible. It means that they can just regenerate and do it again and again and again. And, with a great manager and with a few key players kept hold of, I think that Liverpool will just make themselves a sustainable top 4 club. They should stay there now for the next decade, really.
Yeah, and we see Man United kind of doing the opposite, don't we, at the moment?
Yeah,
maybe slipping out of that top 4. Anyone else to add to the equation, or should we
I'm trying to
just
think more
move
of
on to the next
a lower
Quickfire?
league team off the top of my head, but it's a bit harder to like look into those kind of sides. The ones that are a bit sort of more like mid-table. Bournemouth, maybe, possibly. They've been quite good this season. I've said that off the top of nothing, really, that they've been good this season. And they've got
Well,
Ake,
I mean, they're
and a bunch of their players who are quite young.
Southampton were traditionally
Watford.
great.
The recruitment's been okay, although Jefferson Lerma, the jury's still out on him. Southampton are an example of a club who, I mean, they got from promotion League One to the Premier League, took them 5 years.
Yeah.
And then, finished 6th under Koeman, 7th?
They got 6th, I think.
2 or 3 top 10 finishes under Pochettino and Koeman, became the sort of model of consistency, and they've shown us how quickly it can all come unravelled, haven't they? But when you let your squad get exponentially worse, when you don't recruit at the same rate, and when I suppose your philosophy just takes an absolute U-turn, and you go to a manager to keep you in the Premier League and then offer him a 3-year contract.
But Hamill, how could you get them back into the Champions League?
Well, you could find out in this week's Sunday Vibes podcast. Joe Tomlinson does a very good job of rebuilding Southampton. It is out. We put it out at the same time as Sunday Vibes, don't we? So 11 o'clock on a Sunday. Be there. We'll be square. Next question. Actually, we're just going to dive straight into personal questions now.
Perfect.
First one is from Haz Kareem. Did work experience here. Shout out to you, Haz. He's asked, what is your biggest pet peeve, gentlemen?
Biggest.
We did this
loud
in Sunday Vibes,
eaters.
didn't we?
Yes. Oh my God.
But masticating.
I'm like in between an absolute. It's mental. McCubbin, Doogie, Atkins, James. Every now and again when he's got his headphones on, I'm just surrounded.
Yeah.
And I just go.
Yesterday, I could hear this horrible, like, wet mouth noise, and it was going on for ages. And I eventually turned around, and McCubbin's just chewing with his mouth open, just chewing gum.
Just licking a crisp to death.
And I was like, I'm going to kill you.
It's hilarious.
So
Just bad manners generally. It's like unconscionable.
Bad manners generally.
If I've got my headphones on when I chew gum, I think I can be guilty of that. Me and Tomlinson annoy each other in that I do that. I go like full Fergie sometimes. I'm like chewing it to death. And I've never heard a man who sounds like he's suffocating while he's drinking.
Yeah,
I think he holds his breath after a gulp for about 30 seconds, and he's like.
In general, he breathes really loudly.
He's got asthma.
Yeah, true. That is true.
His windpipe is
I
tiny.
do apologise, Jay.
I'm pretty sure the windpipe is that vein in the side of his face.
Oh my God.
But yeah, that's pet peeves. It's a good question.
It is.
I mean, bad manners and ingratitude is.
But that's
definitely
like a general one, isn't it? Like, is there any weird ones that I don't like?
We kind of discussed them on Sunday Vibes. So yeah, let's go for the weirder, kind of more left field ones.
People that don't wear socks with shoes.
People
Wow.
I hate feet in general. So when you have to see them out there, like I'm so happy socks
that don't
exist.
wear socks with shoes.
Yeah, I'm so happy
Their trainers are going to
socks.
stink.
Honest to God, I'm so happy socks exist. Like if people
Are
do
you
have
a bit
socks,
grossed out by feet?
I really don't like feet. I really don't like feet. I hate it.
How are your feet?
Absolutely. They're
Unless
okay.
it'd be big,
They're okay.
hairy.
They actually after football they're so veiny. They're
Yeah.
so veiny. But I hate feet.
There you go.
But yeah,
They're just feet, man.
and I don't know, toe thumbs. I hate a toe thumb.
A toe thumb.
I hate toe thumbs. But that's like people can't really help that.
People that talk over films at home.
Oh, my mum.
Like, obviously you wouldn't do it at the cinema because that would be madness. and but just because you're in a casual setting, it doesn't mean I don't want to concentrate.
But it's when they ask you questions like, oh, why has that happened? I don't know. Yeah. I've not seen the film.
Yeah, exactly.
People that can't
pay attention.
People that can't deal with anticipation, not knowing.
Oh my god.
That's the idea. You've got to be invested in it. PVS, any other ones you've not mentioned before?
Yeah, some people are absolutely terrible at just like watching films or TV. They just don't seem to get there. Like, oh well, I better ask somebody if they'll explain that to me now. And you're like, why can't you just trust that it will be resolved?
Literally. Like
every film you've ever seen in your life, you f***ing cretin. Like, people at the gym who like make noises when they don't need to, or who drop their weights. Like, you show me somebody who does that, and I'll show you someone who's not actually. Like, it's never the people who look like they go to the gym a lot. It's always the people who are kind of knobs. Yeah, that's not great. I mean, there are so many like people who trim their beards too much. Chin strap beards, those are appalling. Goatees should never be allowed under any circumstances, except to show that you're evil. God, what else? The term overly, I don't understand why that word exists, and I use word very loosely. I think it's stupid, and whenever anybody uses it, I assume they're stupid. God, what else? There are so many. People who say pronunciation, it's pronunciation, you f***ing moron. The irony of mispronouncing the word pronunciation is just too ridiculous. I could go on today.
He's got full P,
yeah.
But what is your...
Tories.
There we go.
Scum.
Leave your pet peeves.
I also hate Corbyn, though. He's useless knob.
I don't know if we should leave this question. I think this is...
It could go on. It could go on. Pro clubs. So there are parts of like...
Pro club? You love pro clubs,
yeah, but there are some guys that make their players, and when they score a goal, they ruin their players' faces, and then they score a goal, and they go mental in the celebration, like shushing you when you're beating 4-1.
Pro club heads.
Expensive t-shirts that shrink during a 30-degree wash.
Oh, that's such a good shout. Yeah, exactly. You're trying to be environmentally friendly, and all you've
done
is lost your t-shirt.
It's going to be this one.
You know when you get one. No, this is a bit of a stretchy material, so I'm fine. You know when you get one, you can't buy a t-shirt that fits perfectly.
Champion.
You're like, this is gonna. Champion turns into a crisp packet.
It does.
Absolutely outrageous as well. And I don't Champion. Why are we just buying Champion at £40 a pop when they're still selling it in Sports Soccer for like $9.99?
I know.
Sports Soccer, showing my age there. Sports Direct now. Anyway, yeah, so shrinking t-shirts. Oh God, we're ironing. Ironing. Jesus Christ.
Especially when
you hold it up and it still looks turd, and you're like, I've been going at this for about 15 minutes.
I had to iron a shirt on Tuesday, and I spent a good 20 minutes. It wasn't a great iron either, and I need to invest in one, a proper one, where it's just like one, and it's just all straight and flat. Because, especially when there's that one where it's a little, everything else is flat, and there's a little bit of a like crumple there, and you just go like that for about 10 minutes, and still it won't do it. Oh, infuriating.
Oh, sorry, I was thinking of others while you were going over that.
Things that are inexplicably expensive. You know, like toiletries, like deodorant and stuff. It's well
toilet
expensive.
roll.
It's so expensive.
Nearly £3.
Why are toiletries so expensive, man? Though then again, deodorant is not so expensive that there should be people on the tube who haven't used it. It's not like unaffordable.
People on the tube that like...
No, let's not. No, let's not. That's not weird. That's not weird. Everyone feels that way. The other day, I counted the number of people around me who had their backpacks on a crowded tube, and I was radicalised. I was so angry. Like, I was like, "What are you doing, you stupid?" I was fuming. I literally just grabbed a guy's backpack and like just shook it until he turned around. And I was like, "Take your backpack."
And there's
the ones who don't want to go in between the standing bits, in between the seats, so they stand on the edge.
They stand there like they're on the edge of a cliff.
Climb by them to get through. It's like, what's happening?
You know, when someone runs out onto a ledge in a film and they're like, "Whoa!" Like that's what they're like on the edge of it. It's stupid.
The worst commuter is the commuter who thinks it's acceptable to eat fish on the tube.
Who eats on the tube?
Eat fish on the tube.
If it's cheese and tomato, fine, but don't you bring your salmon and cucumber Marks and Spencer's bullshit into my carriage.
The tube.
All right? Anyway.
Good God.
Moving on.
Tuna in any form other than steak.
That felt good. Oh, and people at work who put broccoli in the microwave, go and take a long walk off a short pier. You're the worst type
Anything
of person.
that stinks for food-wise, don't have it in the office. Eat it outside.
Broccoli in a microwave. You might as well just serve hot.
Wow.
Right? Garbage.
We got
garbage juice. Bin bum.
We could actually go on forever.
Anyway, right. Diego Escobar, let's wrap this up, has asked, what is your favourite bad movie? That's a good question. Favourite bad movie. So maybe a film that you love that shouldn't have been good, but was good, right? Because you can't have a favourite film that you genuinely think is bad.
Yeah.
You can. I mean, there are films that you know are bad.
It's difficult. But I'm thinking action films. I'm thinking...
Yeah, action films are.
I'm thinking Nicolas Cage
Like The Rock.
films.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen
know.
White House
Face
Down?
Off.
It's tremendously enjoyable, but it is not good.
Yeah. Which ones? Because there was two, wasn't
The
there?
one
White
with
House Down. Which
with
one's
Jamie Foxx and
right,
Channing Tatum.
okay.
Yeah, that's good.
What's the one with Gerard Butler?
Olympus Has
Oh,
Fallen.
that
This
is
is
terrible.
That's-
That is a terrible film.
It's
No, but he's in Citizen
Kane.
Law Abiding Citizen.
Law Abiding
That's
Citizen.
terrible. As
Law
well.
Abiding Citizen was enjoyable, yet not great.
Yeah, I mean, Gerard Butler
Con Air.
is
Cowboys
a
versus
genuinely
Aliens?
terrible
Cowboys
actor.
versus Aliens is not a bad show. It was truly awful. But
Also,
they-
who's
I
one
actually-
from Bond?
I actually
That's what I
thought,
mean.
you know what, Daniel
Craig.
Craig on a horse taking on an alien. Why hasn't it been done before?
Bond films in general, I don't think they're that great. I think they're overhyped.
Yeah, a lot of them are quite bad, but
And
they're fun.
The new ones.
They're-
The new ones. Are
Yeah,
great.
they're fine,
Casino
but they're
Royale is very
overhyped.
good.
I mean, they've aged terribly.
Casino
They're-
Royale is
they're-
the best one.
They're extremely rapey, the old ones.
Yes,
And
they're not great.
Roger Moore, never great in my opinion. Sean Connery, best Bond. Followed by Daniel Craig.
I think Daniel Craig won. I really do. I think he's the best actor they've ever had.
Yeah, he's the best actor.
Until Idris Elba gets the role.
Pierce Brosnan, special mention, obviously, because he was...
Idris Elba,
He was Bond growing up.
will kill Bond. It will be so good.
Can we not? Like, I feel like we're getting off piste here.
Okay, bad films, bad films.
So
I
one
dunno.
film
White
that I
Chicks?
rate tremendously, that I don't hear an awful lot of people talk about, is The Guardian with Ashton Kutcher
I've
and
never
Kevin
seen it.
Costner.
What's
There's
the-
not enough
what's the-
films about the
Oh
Coast
my
Guard out
God.
there, and this is a genuinely
There are
great
not
film.
enough films about the Coast
It
Guard.
is a touching
What the
film
fuck?
I don't know if I've
about
seen it.
two men who need each other. All right, at the different points in their life. One, Kevin Costner loses his team in an accident. Ashton Kutcher is a wayward not a vagabond. That's a tramp. He's a bit of a reprobate, and but he needs the discipline. He needs the tough love of Kevin Costner, and he teaches him how to be the best goddamn Coast Guard there ever is. And then
I feel like your memory of this film
I
is
feel
a
like
little
this
bit
is my- I feel like
hazy.
this is my life.
it's one of the ultimate men films. You would 100% cry, Jella.
I actually do like a good. Thing is, I can't help it
Little
either. It's not even like
tearjerker.
it just goes.
I put Zach onto This Is Us the other day, an Amazon series you should definitely go and watch. I mean, probably with your girlfriend. It's too emotional to watch alone. And Jan texted me later that night, like, yeah, it happened. I cried.
It's just so sad. It really is.
All right, mate.
Any other films? Come on.
Die Hard with a Vengeance is not great, but it has such a place in my heart. Like, 'cause it's got Sam Jackson in it. And when I was a kid, I was just like, he is the best person who's ever lived. And I still sort of
You
stand
don't
by
rate
that.
Shawshank.
Shawshank.
Yeah.
Well, how have we gone to
Bill
Shawshank?
The Bill
How have we
Shankly
got? How
redemption.
have we taken a? Shawshank is not a good film. It's objectively, it's at best average. It's just a prestige movie for people who can't tell the difference, you know, between actually good and sort of having the trappings of like a good film.
I just can't think of. I don't really. But I've always said I've enjoyed every film I've ever watched, apart from Ghost
mental.
Rider.
Go on, then the worst.
Ghost Rider
I've enjoyed every film I've ever watched except Ghost Rider.
with Nicolas Cage.
That's excellent.
So bad.
Is that the one where he's having sex with a woman and has a shootout?
What?
During.
It's so bad.
He does it. He doesn't just leave.
Oh God.
He continues.
Is that Shoot Me Up with Clive Owen? Did he do
God,
that as
yeah,
well?
Shoot 'em up.
Shoot 'em up. Is there any films like? Because I get a little bit OCD in that when I start a film, I kind of have to finish it.
Oh, yeah, I've never left a
The other
film.
week, I was watching that new Han Solo film. It was painfully boring the middle hour. But what are like the few films you've genuinely walked out and you've had to draw a line under it, pretended it never happened, and just gone, no, I can't commit any more of my finite time on this earth to this film. Because I will give you a good example. Only time I've ever walked out of the cinema, and it's my own fault. Should have predicted it. But the film I went to see, which coincidentally also turned out to be terrible, which was that film about the Chernobyl disaster.
Right.
I can't remember the title. But yeah, I walked out of Abe Lincoln, Vampire Hunter.
Of course.
Yeah.
What was I even doing?
Don't even risk it.
I've never walked out of the
I've
cinema.
never walked. I fell asleep twice in two films. Godzilla, because it's 3 hours long.
Well, the new Godzilla.
No, the old Godzilla.
Oh God,
It
and
is
it's
so
terrible.
long and not great.
It's
and,
one of the worst films ever made.
And Terminator. Can't remember which one.
Terminator?
But, yeah,
Which one?
I can't remember which one, but
You
whatever.
need to remember which one, because if it's the original or Terminator 2, which is comfortably the best.
Yeah.
Well,
you should be
you think
ashamed of it.
Terminator 4
'cause
with
it-
Christian
well, this is
Bale?
it.
Or Terminator 3 with Cristiano Lorca, which
Because
is awful.
No, it's one of the first and second ones because I woke up and the ending scene is the robot walking away from a fire explosion in the background.
I mean, that happens in most of
That
them.
might be 3. I don't know.
There you go. It's one of
bad,
them.
though.
It's
I
one
don't
of them.
think-
It's like this was like 2006 as well.
It took me about a year before I finished The Hateful Eight. Like, I swear, I got halfway through and I was like, "This is actually bad. Like, this is not just like a bit dull. It's not good.
It's
It's like a pastiche of Tarantino."
Yeah, it's a turd covered in glitter, isn't it? It looks
So bad.
beautiful, but it's Channing Tatum just pops up like a mole at the end, and you're just like, well, that's a terrible film, isn't it?
What's
so
that?
I've ruined it for you, but don't watch it. In fact, I've saved you 3 hours. Good
What's
to
that
watch.
British film about the lad from London who joins the
Lockstock?
secret agency?
Oh, Kingsman.
I actually rate Kingsman.
Oh,
I won't have a bad word said, and
sec-
Kingsman too.
No, the
I
second- the
love
second-
The second one
Kingsman
is
too.
so bad. I saw it on a plane and it was. I mean, it was so gash.
No.
It was really bad.
Favourite plane film?
La La Land. Only first ever watched it.
You can't watch that.
I watched it and it was so
How
good.
could you
Sound's not
how could you
sufficient.
enjoy
The
the
visuals.
ensemble, yeah.
With my
Singing
Beats
and
headphones.
dancing.
I
you
want,
could
I
pick
only
up
want,
from-
I only want to see a film on a plane. I don't like, or a film I've seen before. I don't like it. If it's a film that's meant to look good, like any film that's basically not a studio comedy, then I want to see it look good and I want it to sound good. I don't.
I
really-
watched. I mean, I defied those rules. I mean, they're good rules, but what was the one with Andrew Garfield in
Spider-Man.
No, he's a World War
Oh,
II
Hacksaw
soldier.
Ridge.
Hacksaw Ridge.
Hacksaw Ridge.
That's a
Oh,
good
God.
one. I actually didn't mind that.
Bit of a tearjerker. I actually thought it was very good. Just one more. Anyway, God, this has been a long.
What
personal
films have you
question.
cried at? Let us know in the comments below.
Excellent. Should we just
Narnia.
go- let's go.
When Aslan died, I was in primary school with my
Do you say
primary school.
Nana?
Narnia.
Okay, good.
Ah, tears.
Pretty certain he
Okay.
said Nana, but we'll see.
I didn't.
Golden Compass and a bear died. So that was Continental Club for another week. A little bit rambly, but something different. What else is happening on your Football Daily, gentlemen, that these fine people can go and watch next?
The non-league vlog is out tomorrow on FTSC. Make sure you check it out. Michael McCubbin and James are on the road again. And check out our Instagrams and FTSC's Instagrams because we're up in Manchester looking at another non-league club on Saturday as well, along with the FN going live an hour ago on Football Daily.
Nice.
Pretty comprehensive there, mate.
Boom.
Bye.